Shane Dawson used to be YouTube's sweetheart, loved and adored by almost everybody for his humor and relatable content, but this would honestly really just come crashing down so fast in 2020 as countless of his former videos and skits posted on his old channel would come back rising to the surface. Racist skits, videos in which he joked about doing things with his cats, videos in which he inappropriately, to say the least, acted around some of his young fans and young family members, sparked a deserved outrage online, and honestly anybody who had looked from the outside would think that his career would come to a crashing halt after all this came out. And yet Shane still persists to this day with conspiracy videos that still get over 1 million views and a podcast that has a consistent and very loyal fan base. Hi everybody, my name is Justin Jordan, and today we're going to be just truly diving in to the deep rabbit hole of Shane Dawson's career and cancellation trajectory, and hopefully covering stuff that isn't even talked about as much as it should be as it pertains to Shane Dawson and his cancellation. So we're just gonna go way back, all the way back to the absolute beginning. So Shane was born Shane Lee Yaw in 1988 in Long Beach, and going off of podcasts and kind of his own discussion of what his life had been like in the beginning, he seems to not have had the best childhood experience at all. He describes his family as being poor, and that their financial status was not helped at all by their dad allegedly just leaving his mom for another woman, and also his dad, according to Shane, was very and just an overall human being. They would later reconnect in a video, but otherwise his dad isn't really mentioned that much in his content, honestly. Going on to middle and high school, Shane Dawson would really face a lot of bullying, mostly for his weight. He also really seemed to struggle socially as it pertains to school. He was not Miss Popularity. And just going off of some stories that he would discuss in his book, Ihatemyselfie, which I read in a video, subtle self-plug, Shane kind of describes himself as being a loser and kind of also displays weird behavior as it pertains to what he thinks is okay. At one point saying that he catfished this guy who was bullying him by pretending to be a girl and printing out a picture of that guy's stuff and almost bringing it to school before throwing it away. Or I think he actually said he flushed it down the toilet because he felt bad, which is just really honestly just oddball behavior. Like, who does that? I'm sorry, that's not normal. And if we're going off of what he said in Ihatemyselfie, Shane Dawson just seemed really bitter and angry at the world overall. He slut-shamed any women that he mentioned in the book, and kind of even expressed some lingering resentment towards people from that time, even after high school. In one story describing how the popular girl had gotten fat, and how he worked at Jenny Craig at the time, and how she came in, and he kind of had a finally kind of a healing moment in this story where he actually, forgave her for bullying him back in high school. But back to the main topic at hand, where does YouTube and just content creation in general come into this story at all? Basically, Shane describes that he'd gotten some attention for his funny side, and his funny side just so happened to include jokes that, let's be honest, are pretty racist. This was racist to the point where in one story describes how a teacher literally called him out for being racist. Apparently he would perform these things for the class and actually get, some attention. And the teacher, one of his teachers, said this was racist and degrading, and he had to get his black friend to stick up for him. Which, honestly, in my opinion, too on the nose for me to believe that he actually had a black friend who was sitting there and standing up for him. But regardless, Shane had gotten a lot of attention for these jokes, and this seemed to be something that he really, really craved and, desired attention. He talks about how often he would be ignored, how often he would kind of feel invisible. So I think this was kind of a way for him to get that recognition that he so desperately desired. Unfortunately, one of his classmates told him that YouTube was a thing and he could post these videos, and apparently some teachers found it funny enough for them to share it around the school. Which I find interesting. I'm just imagining some 40-year-old teacher sharing that, oh, Bethany, come watch this video of this man pretending to be a black woman dressed in blackface. I do want to emphasize that although I might seem like I'm going very deep into Shane and kind of being very critical of him, I do really honestly feel bad for him having to go through all of this. No one deserves to be bullied, and he also just describes some things back then happening struggling with his weight seems to be like a lifelong struggle for him, and like nobody deserves to go through that. I don't know, I could just really see an emphasis on a lot of his raunchy humor and a lot of stuff that would come to haunt him later in his life, and kind of the amount of validation that he had gotten from this behavior in the past, if that makes sense. We're entering like original YouTube era, which I would say goes from about 2008 to 2012 or 2013. Let's just say that a lot of the stuff that would later come to haunt Shane stems from this era, and like the only draw to his content at this time seems to be his racist, homophobic, sexist, anti-Semitic comedy. And although that was a lot of groups, I think there's probably even more groups that he offended. So after high school, Shane Dawson had kind of lost a lot of weight in a short amount of time and ended up working at Jenny Craig. If you don't know what Jenny Craig is, sorry to go on a side tangent, but I kind of didn't really understand it. Like, I've heard that name before, but basically they used to be really, really big in like the weight loss space. Imagine like Weight Watchers. Even Weight Watchers is kind of falling off now because Ozempic and all that. The whole craze used to be like, you know, Weight Watchers, going to Jenny Craig. Like, this was like a physical store where you could walk in and like they would sell you like a weight loss package. I just find that insane as someone who was kind of Gen Z and kind of was raised in the unfortunately short-lived era when society was moving more towards like, you know, this is your body and regardless of how it looks, I mean, it's okay. Like, we had a short time of acceptance and then it's kind of like the pendulum has really just swung back. But regardless, Shane was working at Jenny Craig, and that didn't really stop his content grind. He was still making content, which I find really crazy given the fact that his content was like so super offensive at this time. Like, this was not tame, this was not chill content, this was offensive content. But regardless, those two would eventually come to clashing when Shane decided it would be a great idea to make a video in which he made fun of like, the company spokesperson. I think she was like an actress, and she had this book where she just described a lot of the crazy things that she did back in the day, and pole danced with a lot of like employee. Like, he read parts of that book that were like crazy and pole danced with employees. That just honestly seems like an awful idea anywhere. And like, from what I'm hearing about like these weight loss centers, it does not seem like a fun work environment. Like, that low-key seems like a toxic work environment. This would literally lead to his entire family being fired along with anybody who was in the video. So insane that his whole family was just sacked for that video. But luckily for Shane, his career would start taking off shortly after this video, with his video like parroting Fred becoming a certified hit back then, getting millions and millions and millions of views. And this got so big to the point that Shane actually ended up being one of the first YouTubers to get into the YouTube Partner Program, which was a very new thing. This era is just a lot, but I really am so fascinated, and we just have to talk about these characters, okay? Because these characters are absolutely insane. So Shane Dawson had made a number of characters at the time. Like, a lot of his content was character and skit based. If you don't know, YouTube was more skit based at that time. I won't say I was into it, but like, I don't know, for some reason when I was like really young, I got Smosh videos from like 2008, and I just used to binge old Smosh videos. So that was the kind of content we're talking about, but like, imagine Shane Dawson humor Smosh video. So even though old Smosh was kind of offensive, Shane Dawson took it to an extreme level. And while a lot of these old videos have been absolutely decimated off the internet, you cannot find these videos anywhere. Fandom came in clutch because I was able to see fan-written descriptions of these characters, which was really the cherry on top of this disgustingly racist, nasty pie. So we have to talk about Shanae. Shanae, I think, is like one of the most infamous characters created by Shane, and one of the ones that he seemed to use the most. According to the wiki, she is described as, quote, rude, sexist, ghetto, and loves to kill people she despises. Shanae seems to be Shane Dawson's half-baked attempt at basically making a modern-day minstrel show, embodying like most, if not, embodying a lot of the negative stereotypes that are lobbed against black women. Like, this is literally so obviously racist to the point where the wiki describes her friends as being black as shit and Shane. I'm so sorry, but who, like, Shanae is really insane, right? But naming a character black as shit, is absolutely diabolical. Like, what possessed him? There was some sort of demon that possessed Shane Dawson while he was creating these characters, because this is absolutely insane. And we have to have a little bit of a history lesson, y'all. Sorry, we have to have a history lesson, a side tangent, because the last time that I talked about Shane Dawson, just kind of in a general sense, and Shanae being racist, I got comments like, how is that racist? Oh, this isn't racist. I wish we would move past, like, you know, blackface being seen as racist. Let me sit here and tell y'all why so many people are upset about this, because it's not just a case of, oh, he's pretending to be black when he's white. This has levels in history to it, y'all. Like, this is something that legitimately had a serious impact on the history of black people, especially in America. So, minstrelsy is a type of show when people who are white painted themselves black and kind of pretended to be black. Sometimes they would even put on wigs to appear as black, and a lot of these times this black face paint was very pronounced, made to look in a way that's very hideous and very uncanny, meant to be, just the look alone is meant to be funny. And if they did wear wigs, the hair would appear nappy, disheveled, and not only would they basically make a mockery of black features and what it looks like to be a black person, often putting like red rings around their face to kind of try to pretend like us black people have, like, I don't know. That is one thing I don't get, because even in like some animes, I'll see where like they have a black character and it's kind of like pink like lips. I don't see that. I'm sorry. Like, where did that come from? I know it's racism, but like legitimately, like black people don't look like that. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense. I guess they're trying to make fun of the fact that we have bigger, more full lips, which I think is just really funny given the fact that now everybody wants to have full lips. Regardless, they would not only dress like this, making fun of how black people looked, making fun of how we acted, which trying to make all black people seem like we're stupid, trying to make all black people seem like we're dumb and lazy was another thing, which is, I just think it's really interesting how we were portrayed as lazy, because it's like, okay, so we were just slaves working for you for free, like we were just your free labor, but now that we're free, we're lazy. This was basically just a way to continue to concoct reasons why black people were not deserving of rights, and this actually had like real horrifying effects. One thing that I found when I was researching this video, because even as a black person, while I knew that minstrelsy was harmful, I did not know like kind of the direct effect that it had on people seeing us as subhuman, people seeing us as less than, and people kind of using the reasons and the mannerisms displayed in minstrel shows as a sort of way to validate us not having rights. Many of the stereotypes were reinforced. It just really continued this devastating cycle. And I really find it interesting because if y'all have ever heard of Jim Crow laws and wondered where that name came from, Jim Crow was actually a character in a minstrel show. While the laws probably wouldn't be called, you know, Jim Crow, I just found that really insane. Like, it just really shows the impact that these minstrel shows had on the history of black people in America. So, somewhat in modern day, dressing as a black person and perpetuating stereotypes historically lobbed against black people, it definitely ruffled a few feathers. Some people are like, oh, this is just internet stuff. Oh, this is whatever. This actually had real life impacts. Black people, especially black women in real life, facing racism from the Shanae character. So one person I saw on Reddit said this, quote, Shanae is the literal embodiment of pretty much every single negative stereotype against black women. I was even mocked and called that name, I'm a black woman by the way, years ago in school by someone who would watch Shane Dawson. They were not black and know countless other black women who have had similar experiences due to the stereotypes that the character perpetuated. Now, Shane Dawson's kind of defense for this, his kind of reasoning as to why he was allowed to do this, his excuse was, I have a black friend and they told me that I can do this. And you know, it's not reality. I'm just making fun of a stereotype. But I feel like that excuse is very, very easy to come out of your mouth when people are legitimately in real life facing real life consequences and real life racism because of this content. Regardless of intent, the outcome of him making these type of skits, of him making this type of stuff, ended up in people facing real life racism, ended up exacerbating these real life problems. So now we're moving on to another character named Aunt Hilda. Aunt Hilda is another character of Shane's creation, known as Mrs. Goldstein because she also was a teacher apparently, and a major feature of her is that she seems to be terrified that Shane is gay and kind of obsess over that, which I think is really funny because, oh, just for context, at this time Shane was kind of straight presenting. He had not come out, I don't think, until about, I think it was 2014 or 2015 when he came out as bisexual. So at this time he was straight, or claiming to be straight, which I think is funny how the whole bit about this character is that Shane is gay. And also a lot of people are saying this character is a really bad stereotype of a Jewish woman. He'll sometimes call her or refer to her as like his Jewish aunt. And that is something that comes up a lot with Shane that I don't think is fully discussed. Like anti-Semitism, it's a lot of things baked into Shane's content that I feel like some of those things haven't fully been addressed because the cancellation was just kind of a mess. Regardless, like many of his other characters, she has this real obsession with violence and just being violent. Like, she apparently kills people, and she also acts very inappropriately around Shane, who is supposed to be her nephew, which another thing that Shane seems to be obsessed with. Track record, Shane, like, we're both obsessed with incest and murder. Like, yes, go ahead, queen. And now we have to talk about these two characters because this is absolutely disgusting. They're not as talked about as Shanae because I think Shanae was like his main bit, but these two characters are also insanely racist. Fruit Lupe or Guadalupe is the embodiment of so many negative stereotypes against Latina women, and the Shane Wiki describes her as, quote, loud, talks fast, foul-mouthed, and opinionated, which is just, I mean, come on, Shane, like, way to lob on the racism. Not only are you racist against black people, but you're also being racist against Latino people. Like, can we win? And here's another character who has basically the same name, but like with one letter change. Guadalupe is a character made to be Shane's housemaid. And just really subtle there, Shane, because making her a housemaid, like, that is totally like not the most stereotypical job associated with Latino people. Like, are you kidding me? That is insane. Shane is really obsessed with violence. Like, a lot of these characters meet a tragic and just deadly end. So apparently Guadalupe was killed twice, with her once being shot and then being killed by Shane's mom at a point, apparently. We also have to talk about how weird Shane gets, especially when it comes to talking about women or creating women characters. So Amy is a real example of a character that Shane made in his own stereotypical view of women, making her, quote, very selfish, self-centered, violent, and snarky. And just like so many of his other characters, like Amy's last appearance is an episode in which she gets stabbed. And like, it's just like, how did people, I know like most of the fans were kids at this time, but like, how were people tuning in? Because this is absolutely insane. There were about 10 other characters listed there, but just for the sake of time, we are going to continue, but I really think we get the gist of it. All of these characters basically being based on stereotypes of people, and also just revealing Shane's insane obsession with violence. So now we're moving into the early 2010s. Shane Dawson had reached great levels of success on YouTube, and he really seemed eager to kind of transform that success into something outside of YouTube, something more real. And just for context, to explain like why, because you might be thinking like, wouldn't you be happy with being like a famous YouTuber? Back then in like the early 2010s, apparently YouTube and like social media in general was honestly not seen as like a real job. Like, the goal at the time really seemed to be to want to like shift into a more traditional type of career. For example, Jeffree Star kind of shifting into, well, he didn't really make a start on YouTube, but like him shifting into selling beauty products, or Joey Graceffa shifting into somewhat actual TV production, like YouTube making its own movies, YouTube Red. A lot of the craze back then seemed to be with actually transitioning into a more traditional media career, whether that be movies or music. And Shane Dawson seemed like he tried all of it, okay? So Shane Dawson really seemed to want to make himself a bona fide star, and that really did not seem to work out great, especially his music career. So we have to talk about Super Love. Super Love was Shane's attempt at breaking into the wide world of music, and let's just say that Shane ain't no diva, okay? The song, the only like chart accomplishments of the song was peaking at 16 on the UK indie chart. And despite releasing a number of songs and like covers, nothing really seemed to pop. Like, it just really didn't stick with his audience who was used to his skit content, his comedy content. So Shane's music career ended up floundering. And like, one thing I noticed is that I really think his content did not help him at all as it pertains to him continuing and him trying to make his big break into actual TV, into actual movies. His old videos kept coming back to light, and every time they would haunt him. Like, even if he reached commercial success, even if he was actually a good director, even if he had all these things, I really feel like a lot of mainstream companies it was kind of radioactive. They did not want to interact with him. They did not want to touch him. They did not want to deal with him, because as soon as that comes out, like, your brand deal is toast. I feel like this really reached a fever pitch back in 2014 when Shane would actually apparently face a barrage of criticism on Twitter for a skit about Harriet Tubman that people thought he did, but he actually didn't do it. And Shane would make an apology video in 2014 in which he disavowed some of his older content, especially the content as it pertains to like him doing blackface, him reveling in doing blackface, and some of his older skits. But I feel like this video wasn't a true apology to today's standards. It was kind of more so of just like, I was ignorant, and it's like, I mean, you had so many black people around you at the time, like, nobody told you that this was not okay. In the video, he basically at one point claims that he didn't know about the dark history of minstrelsy, which I just found really insanely unbelievable, especially as someone who was like, in my opinion, deeply online in like the early 2010s. And like, while the early 2010s were certainly like aware than like later times, I feel like there had to be somewhere where he could have got that, especially as someone who claims to have so many black friends around him that he uses as excuses to, you know, continue doing the same racist behavior. Like, none of them told you that racism was a real problem. None of them told you about menstrual shows. None of them mentioned that at all to you. I really find that hard to believe. We have to talk about Not Cool, because Not Cool, I think, is like, this is my Roman Empire. Well, not cool, but like kind of the show that it was made on, which was called The Chair, and two directors basically competed to see which one of their films was the best. And I think they had the same script or something, but Shane basically took the script and mangled it to a point that it was absolutely like, Shane Dawson was way too confident in his own abilities, in my opinion, and he just really showed up as like a jerk in the show, yelling at the crew, saying like, why don't these people want to do my script? He made such an offensive script that actors, like a lot of actors, did not want their names attached to this. He was like, why don't a bunch of like out of work actors, like, why do they care? They should be desperate. They should be banging at the door. And it's like, dude, if your play is bad to an extent that it is literally causing people not to want to audition for it and not want their names associated to it, I think you should have a moment of self-reflection and be like, oh dang, maybe this is actually pretty bad. Zachary Quinto was like, I think, the producer of the show, and he called Shane's movie, I think, tasteless. And yeah, he didn't really like Shane's movie at all. And sadly, Shane ended up winning over, in my opinion, who is a talented, like, young director, but I think she actually got her big break eventually. I just think it's really sad how Shane ended up gaming his audience to kind of use the voting system and win when his movie is obviously like bad. Like, the ratings today are bad. Like, this is actually trash. But on the bright side for us, it seems like this movie was actually so absolutely awful that Shane basically got blacklisted from the entire film industry. Yay. So Shane kind of continued on this I'm not a YouTuber, I actually have talent kind of path by continuing to release books. The first being Ihatemyselfie in 2015, and the second being It Gets Worse in 2016. And with Ihatemyselfie, he actually released some short films that aren't terrible, but still don't exactly age the best. And the Rebrand really continued with Shane Dawson posting daily and really going from like his burnt out kind of daily posting era, which like, how do I say this? I feel like when a lot of those YouTubers had their daily posting era, you could kind of just see the decline in quality because it was like, you are burnt out, you are tired, you do not want to be posting every single day. 365 videos? Are you kidding? Like, what are you gonna make a video on? Legitimately. I really feel an attachment to the Spooky Boys. If you don't know who the Spooky Boys are, it's Shane, Drew, and Garrett. And I mostly feel an attachment to Drew and Garrett because both of them jumped ship so fast as soon as Shane Dawson got canceled. They were out of there. And I really don't know if there's any like problematic stuff on those two. Please don't tell me. Because, I don't know, they have a special place in my heart. And what they did was basically kind of did like spooky content. Like, this was Shane's, honestly, his foray into like his later conspiracy era. They would go to haunted places together. They would kind of investigate haunted things together. It was just really cute, and their dynamic was just really cute together. Like, I don't know. I enjoyed that little era. Unfortunately, it was very short-lived because Shane Dawson moved into his empath slash documentary slash whatever he was doing era. Shane Dawson had a massive rebrand kind of before his documentaries would really take fold. The offensive humor of the past, gone. All that stuff was gone. I'm just kidding. But it was gone in his everyday videos, but was it really gone? No. Because Shane had left a lot of those videos up on his Shane Dawson TV channel. He'd shifted to this other channel. And like, as someone who first discovered Shane in his burnt out kind of like posting daily era, I had no idea Shanae was a thing. I had no idea all this stuff was, but if I had scrolled far enough on the Shane Dawson TV, I would have been absolutely appalled and disgusted, even as a child probably. Yeah, so now Shane had shifted from offensive humor to, you know, he's an empath, he's a nice guy, you can trust him. You can trust him. And I think he really played into that role and really got a lot of people to believe that he was this empath type of guy with his series, diving into TanaCon. So basically, if you don't know what TanaCon is, it was Tana Mojo's own VidCon attempt. She basically tried to have her own VidCon because I don't think VidCon invited her, or something happened with VidCon where she didn't want to do it anymore. And she's like, you know what? I can start my own VidCon. I'm going to call it TanaCon. And absolute mess. People were outside for hours. It was just not, like, the capacity of the hotel that she had booked, not up to par. People were stuck outside. I think somebody ended up getting into an ambulance for heat stroke. That is how bad it got. It was insane. But Shane kind of came in and he was like, oh, Tana, I'm so sorry. Basically pinned it on the organizer guy and not on Tana. I could really do a full video on that. Let me know if you want a deep dive on TanaCon, because I just want to know more about what happened there and because like, I did watch Shane's documentary at the time, but like, it kind of was just like, oh, it was just this guy. Tana had no responsibility. And yes, Tana was very young, but at the same time, there has to be a level of like, if you're gonna host this event, it can't just be the organizers who are taking responsibility. And like, I don't know. I might not know what I'm talking about. Let me know down below what happened with that situation, because ciao. And another one that really got a lot of attention, really got a lot of controversy, was like the mind of Jake Paul. Shane basically brought out his therapist friend Katie Morton, who he would later do like a podcast on talking about his cancellation like recently, which is where I'm getting a lot of my facts for this video. Basically the whole series was like, is Jake Paul a sociopath? And it was so insane. Like, yes, it got a lot of views, but there was a lot of controversy, especially regarding like the therapist, because people are like, as a therapist, why would you do that? I think someone said she was basically following him around, asking him if he was a sociopath. And obviously they're gonna clip out the most insane parts. Like, they're not gonna keep if she's actually doing like legitimately therapy. And like, people were just really upset over the fact that she kind of seemed to want to diagnose him without, you know, actually interacting with him. And also patient confidentiality, blasting out like what you think about somebody's diagnosis to millions of people is just really irresponsible as a therapist. But in all of these series, mostly, the common theme was that Shane took something, a topic that was popping off, whether that be like a specific creator or a drama, and would make content off of it. And it did very, very, very well, to the point where like his videos would hit #1 trending. And one series I feel like is not talked about enough is the one in which he tries to, I think he tried to help or cure Eugenia Cooney. For context, Eugenia is someone who is very, very known for being extremely skinny, and many people speculate on whether she has an ED. Many people are like, how is she still alive? And it is a very complicated and sensitive topic because she's been on the internet for a very, very long time, and she's been, some people say, very visibly struggling with ED. or some sort of illness, which makes her extremely, extremely thin. I don't know. It was just very weird on the, like, looking back. I don't think that series was ever completed. And finally, we have to talk about the Jeffree Star series, which would be the beginning of the end for Shane, honestly. So basically, Shane decided to dive into the beauty world, totally not for the prospect of making millions of dollars with Jeffree in a collab palette. No, that would never be the reason why Shane Dawson would, you know, start to become a beauty creator, because he was totally just great at doing makeup. I mean, look at this. This is gorgeous. He's a born makeup artist. And like, Jeffree Star, for those of y'all who don't know, Jeffree Star is very, very, very problematic, has a lot going on in his past. Subtle plug, but I did do a video on a lot of the controversies of Jeffree Star. Shane and Jeffree would make their collab conspiracy palette, making millions of dollars. Like, this palette was so huge at the time. And around the same time as this palette release, and Shane being very buddy-buddy and very close with Jeffree Star, someone who many people consider kind of snake-like and kind of not trustworthy, a scandal would happen. And that scandal would be that James Charles would be accused of being a creep by Tati Westbrook. And a lot of people were saying, like, someone had to spill Tati the information, someone had to feed her this. Like, she was a very unproblematic creator. She would probably not make this type of video, so someone had to encourage her. And a lot of people were pointing to Jeffree Star and Shane at the time because they were, you know, best friends. Shane would basically crash out, making a tweet in which he says he's leaving the beauty community, even though he had just joined for one palette, but okay. And he calls the beauty community toxic and says that James Charles deserved a slice of humble pie. I think he said, a slice of humble pie the size of the Empire State Building. The internet actually said, no, Shane, you deserve a slice of humble pie the size of the Empire State Building. And like, people quickly, like, internet detectives, if you ever wrong their fave, they are going to dig through everything you have online. Everything. So of course they looked at the Shane Dawson TV channel, and of course they found a lot. We already talked about and discussed a lot of controversial and nasty stuff, right? Just with the characters alone. Baby, there was more. There was more. So Shane Dawson would casually use the N-word in several videos, even at one point using it in the face of his black friend. Shane would also make offensive parodies in which he mocked Avril Lavigne's like Japan-only singles, and speaking in a fake Asian accent, which was just so disgustingly offensive. There's also a lot of clips of Shane Dawson being very, very, very inappropriate around children. There's this clip of Shane Dawson being on Omegle with his mom, telling a young girl to twerk for him. And there's also so many clips of him being weird around his cousin. And while Tana Mojo wasn't a minor at the time, I don't believe, he was kind of weird around her, especially for being, I believe at the time, a 30-something-year-old man. And her being newly 18. So they did a video, and Tana Mojo apparently, let's just say she used the bathroom on Shane. That is disgusting. Yeah. And we also can't forget the clip in which he alluded to doing things with his animals in his podcast. The most famous of those clips being that he claimed his cat made him, let's just say, finish. There's also a clip of him pretending to, I don't know if he's, but let's just say pretending to, pleasure himself in front of a picture of Willow Smith, which drew the ire of literally like the Smith family. You do not want to play with the Smith family. Shane Dawson was getting canceled by the Smiths. That's how bad things got, okay? And he took a break for about a year or two, and like he would really just test the waters. His husband, or I think at the time like fiance, Rylan would post vlogs, and Shane would, sometimes pop up in the background, kind of testing the waters. But he would fully make his full return with conspiracy-based content, and there is still a lot of controversy regarding that. A lot of people are saying he's kind of drained the conspiracy bucket. Like, there's no more. It's gotten to a point where one of his videos was him following a Domino's driver to see if the Domino's pizza tracker was actually accurate. How is that a conspiracy, and how is that a 40-minute video? And another one of those conspiracies being Chipotle's online orders are different from their in-person orders. I mean, you really needed a video to tell me that? We needed a scale and a test to see that? I'm sorry. There's also controversy regarding some of his theories, specifically those which allude to some sort of like group of elite or cabal of the elite. A lot of those having their roots in anti-Semitism, and that is a ongoing controversy, something that really hasn't been addressed or apologized for. There's also controversy regarding the real life impacts of Shane Dawson's conspiracies because some of them, they're just really nuisances. Like in this more recent conspiracy kind of controversy, Shane Dawson went to Disneyland to do Disneyland conspiracies, and like the whole crew kind of just came out to check things. And like one of the conspiracies was that there was this brick on like Main Street that was like loose, and they literally tried to take the brick out of the ground and open up a hole, and an employee stopped them, and they showed the full name and badge of this employee. So of course some of the Shane fans were going rabid and like, why wouldn't she let them have fun? I'm sorry, what do you think is under that brick? Like Walt Disney's frozen head? What is the point of proving that there's a loose brick at Disneyland? And also, it's Shane Dawson as well, and he's very famous, and also they're walking around with the camera crew, so of course there is a lot of commotion going around the fact that this camera crew and this crazy looking guy is just pulling a brick out of the road. So an employee is gonna come over there and be like, what are you actually doing? This is not normal behavior. I'm gonna get into my final thoughts about Shane, because I truly think Shane is the case of flying too close to the sun. Like, Shane Dawson really had it all when you think about it back in like his documentary era. He's still getting like millions of views, which, girl, give me a million views. You know, we'd be up. He had it all and he really wasted it. Like, if he had never made that humble pie tweet, he may have been canceled eventually, but I feel like he truly would have been fine. But he just had to get involved in the drama. He just had to be that girl in the tea. He just had to, you know, try to push it one step further. And also the trap of validation as it pertains to his original racist content. He got a lot of validation, it seems like, from his classmates, from these racist skits, and thought that was okay and thought that was what people wanted, when in reality, that's not something you should be doing. So getting all that encouragement, especially from the internet, led to this like feedback loop where he seemingly ignored all the people saying like, this is offensive, this is disgusting, because there were comments under some of those videos like, hey, this is causing me to face stereotypes in my real life. This was this new thing that just came out of nowhere in 2020 because people are being too woke or whatever. No, people were actually legitimately upset about his behavior back in the day. But regardless, that's pretty much all I have to say about Shane. Let me know down below what you think about Shane. If there's anything I missed that you think is like super important, there probably is something. Let me know what you think down below and what you want to see next. And I'll see you next time. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed. Bye.